Carry them up.
It's working.
Alhamdulillah. It was about a minute lag there, no?
Yep.
Alright, is that good?
Probably more than a minute lag, actually. I see extreme lag.
Oh, like, was I still 14
No, it's
minutes?
like 10-minute lag. I don't know what that could be.
Okay, he's dying. He's dying.
It's a dime and it doesn't.
Yeah, I think so.
Look at the phone here.
Yeah.
It's really late. It's like 10 minutes late.
10 minutes?
Yeah.
You didn't start at 10 minutes. How's it 10 minutes late?
You know what I mean. I'm being basic, right? I'm Muslim. I don't know about time. Yeah, it's really late.
I would say 5 minutes. I would start with 5 minutes.
Yeah, the pilot traffic will be on time.
I'll go and wait. You go.
No, that's it.
I didn't go that too. That's fine. Yeah, it's live started. You can clear it up. Yeah. In my account, it's an assay. No, I'm YouTube. Yeah. Over there. Bring in the back. That's fine. Yeah, I'm glad you guys came to me. I told Ibrahim to come as well, but he said just caught up with us. I didn't yesterday and something else. He was gonna try it. Huh? I don't know. I didn't get an invite if it was. No, I'm not sure. But I think he said he's gonna try it. Maybe after the barbecue, he might be able to come to it. So, it's just you guys from here? Yeah, a bit of here in the house, right? Hi, bro. How's it going? How are you? Good, bro. That's you guys here. How's your trip here? You guys came this morning? Very fast. Yeah, nice. That's exciting. think it's 11 o'clock. Sure.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. On behalf of the Islamic Center of Connecticut, we would like to welcome everyone to this great event. We have an honor of bringing Brother Sheikh Yaser Birjas, and it's going to be our pleasure to host him here and learn a lot from him throughout the day. We hope everyone is ready and everybody is eager to learn something new, and we hope you enjoy it. We joined along with MSA to host this event, so without further ado, I would give Brother Nabil the microphone so he can introduce the agenda and what's going to come along today.
Welcome. Sheikh Yaser Birjas is a world-renowned scholar and speaker. He graduated from the prestigious University of Medina and he was a class scholar in Korea. And he learned under highly respected scholars such as Sheikh Yaser and Sheikh Al-Bani. He then went to work as a relief aide in Bosnia after the Bosnian genocide and served as an imam in Texas. Currently, Sheikh Yaser Birjas is the head of the Law and Theory Department at Al-Maghrib Institute. His specialty in the subject of marriage and relations made him a highly sought marriage counselor for a Muslim community. And inshallah, you guys will
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا ثم أما بعد. So, my texts are still new. We did not have this last night's introduction. We were talking about Al-Jannah and Jahannam. Talk about Jannah and Jahannam. However, we said from last night that in order for us to understand and put the talk about Jannah and Jahannam in perspective, we have to understand the events that would lead to that destination. When people end up in eternity in paradise or eternity in Jahannam, you need to realize how they end up there. Now forget about what they've done in this world. These are the events that will take place in the hereafter. So we talked about the hereafter altogether. There are two kinds of hereafter. Number one is the individual hereafter, and then the massive hereafter. So when we talk about individual hereafter, when does the individual hereafter start? Do you guys remember? When you die. The moment you die, that's it. The hereafter just started for you. It doesn't matter how long it will take for the actual hereafter to begin, which means the end of life and the destruction of this world and the destruction begins. It wouldn't matter to you much. Why? Because your hereafter already started. The Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Man mata faqad qamat qiyamah." Once you die, your hereafter already started. You're already in the afterlife. It's over for you. That's the first thing. Then we mentioned the actual sequence of events that will happen. So it begins now when the person dies, that's it for them. But the actual hereafter and the end of time, the end of life, and the beginning of the day of judgment begins with what? What is it? Exactly. Blowing into that, what do we call it? As-sur in the Arabic language. And as-sur, the Prophet ﷺ, when he was asked what the sur was, he said, "Qarrun yunfakhu fi." It's a horn, it's going to be blown into that horn. Who is the one who's holding that horn? Israfil. That's an angel. So angel is holding it. Do you guys remember the description of Israfil, how he looks like in that moment right now? He's holding that sword, and he's only holding it in his mouth. His eyes looking towards the throne, and he's waiting for the moment that Allah gives him the command to blow into that sword. So he's waiting, he's been waiting since he was created, and his creation was only made for that particular purpose. Israfil. How many times Israfil will blow into the sword? Twice. The first one does what? Destroys everything. What about the second one? Resurrection, the beginning of the resurrection. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes, we mentioned a few surahs, a few chapters from the Quran that gives a vivid description of the actual structure of everything. Can you guys give me some of those surahs, the 3 surahs? That short surah mentioned in the last juz of the Quran. Surah Al-Takwir, which is chapter 84, or chapter 81 as a fact. Then Surah Al-Infitar and Surah Al-Inshiqaq. If you look at these 3 chapters, they give extremely vivid picture and vivid image of what exactly, how it's going to look like. The falling of the stars, the burning of the seas and the oceans, and the destruction of earth, and the system collapses, the graves, and it's going to start basically gets everything out. So eventually, the whole scene, the scenery is terrible, but that's the destruction of everything the way we see it now today. Then after that, there will be some sort of like a period of time between the first blast and the second blast in the home. How much time will last between these 2 blasts? 40 what? 40 years, 40 days, 40 hours, 40 ages, 40 centuries. We don't know. Why is it so unnecessary for us to know 40 what? Why? Time to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what? Is irrelevant. Why? Because He is not measured by time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be limited by time. He created time. So He's everlasting. He is before time was created, and He will last after this time that the way we sense it is gone. So the concept of time to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is absolutely irrelevant. It's relevant to us because we are finite beings and we are limited. So therefore, we limit things by the beginning and the end. So when the Prophet ﷺ said 40, this is just to put us in perspective regarding how much time it will take between the first blast and the second blast. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during that time, He will make one particular announcement. Do you guys remember that announcement? He will make one particular call. What is that call that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will call for, and then there will be no answer coming back? Then He will say, لِمَنِ الْمُلْكُ الْيَوْمِ. To whom the mulk, which means the ownership. To whom the meaning of things, the heaven and the earth belong to whom? And the answer will be what? No. The answer that will come back will be no answer. Because there's nobody to answer. They're all gone. So He answers Himself subhanahu wa ta'ala, says, Billah al-wahid al-qahhar. Allah, the one only al-qahhar, the victorious subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Allah Azza wa Jal gives the command to Israfil to give the second blast. Then when He does that, what happens? Resurrection begins. The earth will be different, the environment will be different, but people will be resurrected. The Prophet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this likeness in the Quran. Like what? How are we going to come out from the grave? Like vegetation, like herbs, when the water comes down and they start growing. How fast are they going to grow? Instantly. You grow quickly. And people, they come in layers, because the graves are layers after layers of dead bodies, dead people. So they come out. Then the moment they arrive, they will be astonished, and even the believers themselves will be astonished in fear. They will be looking around, and then people start asking, wondering, what is the question that people will ask at that moment? قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا. Who brought us back from our sleep? They thought they were napping, and now suddenly they wake up. So they look around, what happened? What's going on? This now ends at one station, one stage of the hereafter, we call it al-ba'th, which means resurrection. Beginning now, starting another stage. What is the other stage that comes after that resurrection? Al-hashr, which means the gathering of people. And we talked about 2 kinds of gatherings. The first gathering is this gathering on earth. Where do people head when they are resurrected from their grave? Where would they go? Now, one of the narrations from the Prophet ﷺ indicating that the Holy Land, Al-Ard al-Muqaddasa in Jerusalem, will be the land of Al-Mahshar, the land of congregation, the land of gathering. Why? What is so significant about it, and why was it made as the gathering, the land of the gathering? Do you remember what we said about it?
Entry point to that.
It's like the entry point, like the station to the hereafter, to the heavens. And what's the evidence to this? The story of the Isra and Mi'raj. Even the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he was brought from Mecca, although Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able of taking him straight from Mecca to the seventh heaven, right? But he was brought all the way to Jerusalem. And from Jerusalem, والسلام, he also going up to heaven. Also, we know that Isa alayhi salam, when Isa alayhi salam descends and comes down at the end of time, where is he going to be coming down? In Sham. In Sham, which is very close to Jerusalem. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about that area, he said about the Masjid al-Aqsa, the farthest mosque called Aqsa in Jerusalem, he said, Subhanallah asra bi'abdihi min al-Masjid al-Haram ila al-Masjid al-Aqsa alladhi barakna hawla. Means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he blessed the land around Jerusalem. That includes the Sham, which is part of the entire station. So that's why some of the ulama, they indicate that it could be the land of congregation because this is the entry point to heaven. So people, they are going to gather over there, and from there they're going to start ascending, going up to heaven. Again, that's in a way that we don't know how it's going to happen on that day, inshallah. Then after the people start gathering, and now every group starts going up, and they keep going up, there is the other form of gathering. What gathering is that? What kind of hashr is that? That's the waiting station right now. So when they gather and they are lifted up to heaven, everybody's now waiting for everybody to come in. Are you talking about generation of human beings? Jinn, animal, beast, everybody is being gathered up there. So everybody is waiting. So that is the time of Al-Hashr, and it's also considered the waiting station. Now the waiting station, how long will the people be waiting before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins the account? How long? Is it 50,000 or 500 years? It's 500 years actually, but you know the days of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they count as 50,000 per day. Again, these numbers only for us to take things, to put things in perspective. But to Allah Azza wa Jalla, 50,500 5 days completely irrelevant. Time to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is irrelevant. It's for us to put things in perspective. Try to describe right now to imagine that thing. People are gathering, the sun, how close the sun is from their heads. 1 mile or 1 mile. So whether that's short distance, the size of the distance in the length of 1 finger, or an actual mile, the geographical distance. It doesn't matter. If the sun is that close, subhanAllah, you can imagine the intensity of the heat. And as a result of that, people will be sweating. And as people sweat, some of them are going to be covered in sweat based on their deeds. So some people, they will be covered all the way to their ankles, they all go to their knees, to their waist, go all the way up to their necks, and some will be immersed in this Allah's time. This is all based on indication to their deeds. And some people, they're going to be receiving that as their only punishment. So if they're being punished like that, alhamdulillah, there's nothing else comes up to this. And others, it's like an indication that they haven't done that great on that day. So they stand there for so long, and after they get tired, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet he said, there are 7 categories of people who will be exempt from falling into this type of punishment. Let's see if you guys can count these 7 categories, inshallah. Do you remember that? Let's see. Don't use your notes. Let me see if you can remember without singing your notes. The first category, which one? Don't have to be an order.
Just ruler?
Imam al-Adil, a just ruler. Next. Let's see what the guy, because a little more active, mashallah.
2 people that love each other for the sake of Allah and meet
two people who love each other for the sake of Allah, they meet for the sake of Allah, they part for the sake of Allah. Yes. A young person who is fit to commit zina when the urge is so strong over there. Yes, ladies. شاب نشأ في طاعة الله, a young person who grows up in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another category. Yes? Someone who cries privately. Just remember Allah and cries privately. Yes?
Someone who gives too much doesn't know what is left.
He gives so much in charity that his left hand doesn't even know how much his right hand is given. And the last category.
Someone whose heart is attached to the masjid.
Someone whose heart is attached to the masjid. So always attached to the masjid. Every time they leave the masjid, they think of the next salah. And when they finish the salah, what do? They look into their watch. Is there enough time to go back home? So I stay in the masjid. No, I'll stay in the masjid because there's not much time to go back and forth. So their hearts are always attached to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah make them among the set of people in Iman. Can someone get all these 7 categories in Iman in their lifetime?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a possibility. But don't try to think, Ya Allah, make Iman, those will be tested, with the fitna. Because that's not work. That's not what. Be careful with that. So Allah is not protected. Okay, so this is 7 categories exempt from being under that kind of punishment during that time. Now, after 500 years, the people they get to the point that said, we're fed up, we can't take this anymore. We're fed up, we can't take this anymore. Where do they go? They start talking with each other, and then they speak to who first? Adam alayhi salam. Adam, he says, I can't do anything to you because I myself have done a big sin, a big mistake. Even though Allah has forgiven him. But he still remembers that he made a mistake. When Allah forbade him from eating from the tree, he said, I did. I broke Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's limits. So therefore, I'm afraid, I'm fearful to myself. You go to Nuh alayhi salam. They go to Nuh alayhi salam. What was the excuse of Nuh alayhi salam not to intercede? He made a dua against humanity. He said, Allah gave me one dua that is accepted and made it against humanity. Then he said, go to Ibrahim alayhi salam. Prophet Ibrahim. So Ibrahim, what was the excuse that Ibrahim gave not to intercede? You guys remember when I mentioned last time? I want to see if you guys know the answer.
3 lies.
Ibrahim, he said, I did 3 lies. He said, I lied 3 times. Ibrahim said 3 lies. Although when you look at them, they're not necessarily lie as a lie, but at least he considered that to be a lie. What are these 3 lies that Ibrahim was referring to? Do you remember them? Yes?
First one is when he lied to his dad, saying that the large statue killed the.
Before that, there was one before that.
That he was sick.
He was sick. The first time when they invited him to go out with him to that festival, and he looked at the stars, and then he told them, Inni Saqim, I'm sick. And these people, they believed in these omens that you might get affected by that. So they left him behind. He meant by sick, what does it exactly mean? When he said, I am sick. It's just like saying in English, I'm sick and tired of this. Like, Inni Saqim, I'm Saqim, I just don't feel comfortable with that. So that's the first one. The second one, when they left to their festival, he went to their temple. What did he do in the temple?
He killed all.
He destroyed all their statues, and he kept the big ones, and he put the axe on the shoulder. So his people, they came and they saw their statues, their God, they're all destroyed, they were shocked. And they said, who did that to our God? What was the answer? Allah said, a young man was talking too much about our God. His name was Ibrahim. So they called him in. So when they called him in, they called Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Ibrahim alayhi salam, he told them, look, look at him. He had the axe on his shoulder. He did it. So that's what for him was alive. And the third one,
he told that.
Let me see from the sister. You guys remember it? His wife. What was the incident? That unjust rule of Egypt, when he was kind of being possessive, so when he saw the wife of Ibrahim alayhi salam, Sarah, he was kind of attracted to her, he wants to take her, but Ibrahim alayhi salam told him, listen. He said, this is my sister. And he meant my sister in faith. You know, something ironic about the story here. They say that Ibrahim alayhi salam, even when he did that, of course, he could still be asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for protection. But that also teaches us as humans in situations like this that you are allowed to take exits by not necessarily lying as much as concealing the truth in a way that is ambiguous, even the answer in an ambiguous way. And this is allowed. The Prophet ﷺ himself to use that when they were on the migration path from Mecca to Medina. A Bedouin stopped it. Stopped our Bedouin and the Messenger ﷺ, and he said, where are you from? Now, if they said they were from Quraysh, from Mecca, he would know that these are the people who've been looking after them. So basically, he can report it. So the Prophet ﷺ gave a brilliant answer. He said, Min ma. We are from water. The word ma is actually the name of a tribe in the River Peninsula, and also means water. And Allah in the Quran describes human beings, they came from what? Min ma, from water. So the Prophet said, we are from water. So the man he understood which water? That's right, in the Arabian Peninsula. But he meant sallallahu alaihi wasallam the actual creation of man. So sometimes it's not using some indication of ambiguous answer. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, finally the people, they will go from Ibrahim, they go to Musa, they will go to Isa, and then they go to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They will say, Ana laha, I'll take care of that. This is called Ash-Shafa'at al-Kubra, the major intercession. He will bow down, he will go in prostration. He is not asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to begin the account, and Allah will give the command for the account to begin and to start. So they start that account. Now, when we talked about the account, which was the last thing we were discussing last time, we said that the account comes in different formats. It comes in different formats. Some of the people will not be asked a question at all. Who are these people? There are two kinds. People will not be questioned at all. The great criminals, that was mentioned over here, great criminals, that Allah doesn't need even to ask them a question. لا يسأل عن ذنوبهم المجرمون. But the mujrimun, the criminals, will not be asked about the question. No one to Jahannam are. Those are associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some other people, they go into Al-Jannah, they were not going to be asked about their morality. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned 4 qualities about these people. That they don't believe in these almonds, that they don't request or solicit ruqya, people to recite for them. They don't use cauterization treatment, and finally they have the full trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لا يتطيرون لا يسترقون ولا يتطيرون ويكتوون مع ربهم يتوكلون. As the Prophet ﷺ described, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them out of them. One of the Sahaba, when he heard that, he said, Ya Rasulullah, Allah nakul minhum. His name was Al-Kashif al-Nafs. He said, Ya Rasulullah, make dua that I will be one of them. The Prophet said, you are one. He granted that to him. He said, you are one. So another Sahaba said, how about me, Ya Rasulullah? The Prophet said, Sabaqaka biha al-Kashif. It means too late for that. The other one, he said, you too, everybody goes, how about me? And you should basically try your best to learn it, inshallah. Next, we said about that, the hisab. Some people, Allah will conceal them from the eyes and the ears of others and will dictate to them what they've done. So they would kind of be reported what they've done. You've done this, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this. Are these people going to be punished? The answer is no. If they were not questioned to give answer to their deeds, then they are going to be forgiven. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the hadith, and he will say, I concealed that in the dunya, in this world, and I forgive you today. Allah forgive you all of you now. And then there are the people who are going to be questioned. Why did you do that for? So we described last time, we were talking about, we said they were actually the court scene, how the court is going to look like. So you have the defendant, you have the plaintiff, you have the evidence, you have the record, you have the witnesses, you have the elders as witnesses, you have also the messengers as witnesses, you have other people, your own body can witness against you or for you. So there are so many things happen during that day. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he explained to us some of the questions that we will be asked about. Some of them about the associated partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially needed with in our life. But there are 2 major questions that you're going to be asked about. What is the first question in relation to the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The first question you're going to be asked about in relation to the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what was that? Salah. Allah will ask about the salah. If it was good, everything will be good. If it wasn't, then you're going to have to start to answer for this before you move forward. What is the first question you'll be asked about in regard to human rights and people's rights?
Regarding blood.
Blood, which means
if you physically hurt anybody.
If you physically hurt anybody, if you physically shed the blood of anybody. So you are going to be asked about these people. So these are the 2 major questions, and we're still talking about the hisab, inshallah, starting from now with some of the things that we're going to be questioned about is intention, which we explained last time, and then we move on, inshallah, now to also the questions about the people under your care. If you're responsible to a group of people that is up to 2 million people, 3 people and up, you are going to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to answer how did you care for them. And that is a very scary question. Remember, if you're a father, you are going to be asked about your wife and your children. If you're a mother, you're going to be asked about your husband and your children. If you are the imam, if you are the board member, if you are the organization president, anyone in a position of authority will be standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah will ask you, what did you do with that authority? How did you handle your position? Was it for the sake of Allah? So did you handle it right? How did you do it? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be questioning every and each one of us on that. He said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Each one of you is like a shepherd, and everyone will be questioned about his or her flock. Allah will ask about his flock, about the people, how did you handle that responsibility? So make sure that if you've been given a responsibility that you have the right answer for it before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You make sure that you do have the proper answer to this question, inshallah. Some of the questions here will involve animal rights. Seriously? We're going to be asked about animals? The answer is yes. The Prophet ﷺ even said that a lady, she was in for Jahannam because of a cat, a kitty. She held that kitty at home. She did not feed that kitty. Did not leave that kitty to go out and live from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides for it. And as a result, that kitty died. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold that woman accountable for that. And she will be actually in Jahannam because of it. Can you imagine? The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, one time he received even a camel, which is one of the miracles of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He had a camel came to the Prophet ﷺ fine, and the Prophet understood the grievances of that camel. And then he made a public announcement about it, ﷺ, saying that if you're going to be caring for these animals, then you better feed them well so they can serve you well. Which means don't consume their energy by demanding so much service of these animals and giving back nothing in return. So whether it's a horse, whether it's even a gardening dog, because I mean, maybe somebody lives in a park or lives in a ranch, whatever. So you have gardening animals, for example, for you, you better take care of them. Because Allah will ask about these animals. Even if you have pets at home. Are you allowed to keep pets like birds? The answer is yes, you can. You are allowed to do so. But if you have to keep that, if you want to keep that pet at home, you are responsible to take care of that pet very, very well. If it died out of starvation, out of negligence, you're going to be held accountable. This is something also we can teach our kids, our children. Because kids, they go out and they harm some of these animals out there. So they go after a squirrel, they go after a rabbit, whatever they throw things on them. And if you have baby animals out, messing with these animals, you are not allowed to do that with them. Only if they're with training. Don't train on squirrels and rabbits. You have no right to do that. So therefore, it's very important to make sure that we respect the rights of these animals. These are the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. Now, is there any question about the hisab? Anyone wants to ask a question about the hisab, the accounts before we move on? Yes.
You mentioned that people wake up and say that who will go through hisab. Does that mean they forgot the person?
So we said that when people are resurrected, they think they will come from an act. Does it mean they forgot that they were dead? Is that what it means? Most likely they would. If they were punished in their graves and they wake up, they just forgot about that punishment. It's just like what happened. It's new to them right now. A whole new different experience. Allah. Sister, any question about the account? Because we're going to put the account at the end of the session. I'll ask you for it. Okay, go ahead.
The same question, when you say people, you mean Muslims, non-Muslims as well?
Everybody will come out.
Will not know what will come up?
Well, we mentioned that last week, that even the believers, as they come out, they know that's a day of judgment, but they're going to come out with fear and panic. They were afraid. They're afraid that they know it's true, and they know that they wish they have done better. Everybody will have a moment of remorse and grief. Why? Because you know what? I wish now I've done better because now I can see that it's real. Everybody will have. Yes.
When you said about the people who automatically go to Jannah without any questioning, and they have to meet those four qualities, if they do that previously and then they find out about this, can they stop? Like if they believe in superstitions and then they find out about this, if they stop, will they be able to go to Jannah automatically, or will they not be able to?
So the question, if those people who will enter Jannah will not come with nothing because of these four qualities. If someone before this session didn't know about that and they lived in superstition, they did some of that stuff. Now they stop until the length of their life. If they stop, can they become among the 70,000? The answer is I hope so. Because once you learn something and then now you're going to be held accountable. Before that, it's always simple. Allah. Yes. Rahmatullah.
So usually my understanding is that you are informed the freedom of the person living as a pet. We will discuss the other and try to keep the bird into the cages, into the feeders and using program.
Okay.
Keeping birds.
So keeping birds as pets at home in cages doesn't mean that you're not violating the rights of these animals. Well, it happened at the time of the Prophet that the brother of Anas, he had a birdie, and he had it as a pet. And every time the Prophet comes in, he asks him, what happened to the birdie? So it is allowed, based on this hadith, to keep these pets. Now, the feelings we have toward these animals, these are human feelings. Animals might not feel the same way that we feel. Yes, they do have some certain instincts, but they're not like what we feel. So when you apply the human emotions for animals, you mess up your life. Like for example, if you have a dog, pet, for example, or even a cat, and then you say, you know what, it's too cold outside, I'm going to bring them in and just cover them with blankets, all the stuff and so on. Allah designed them to survive these conditions. When you bring them in, you're not helping. That doesn't mean to put them in the snow to die, but eventually the point is make sure that if you apply the human emotions to this animal, you're going to mess up the system that Allah created this creation. Allah. Okay, now before we move on to the next stage in the hereafter, I want guys from you to take 1 minute, inshallah, 1 minute to talk to the person next to you. Try to count the events that we talked about from the beginning of the hereafter until the account. What are these events? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Try to count them as quick as possible. You have 1 minute to go ahead and go on.
Actually, I have.
Start off with first law, everybody dies. And Allah asks a question. Oh. Question that
I'll ask the question. And you'll answer the question. But you said something like, aren't I greatest?
Then, second law, we will come back. First, everybody gather. One more thing, I can't remember. Individual and then.
Okay, sorry. Who can give me the sequence of events of the hereafter?
Sure.
In one shot, Bismillah. Let's see the first hand. Where's it coming from? First hand? From the brother. Bismillah. Go ahead. Let's see. Don't use your Don't use your
No, don't use stuff.
Okay, Bismillah. Go ahead.
So there's the first blow.
Okay.
And between the two blows, there's 40.
Okay.
And they're in the second blow.
Okay.
And then the people are gathered into the sky.
Before they're gathered, there's something. What is it? What happened with the second blow?
They wake up.
They wake up. Resurrection. Okay. Then what? Then they gather. They gather outside. That's it.
You go into the heavens.
That's the second gathering. You go into the heavens. And then don't help them. So he said they go to the heaven. Let us see the sister side. Can you guys continue the sequence of these events? What happened next? Yeah? Okay.
So the next point is the architecture. So some controls land and people were studying about the disease, but they were needed and then it's long time. It's long time period for Allah. It's only for humans. So but next year we want to go to
before that, Adam, Ibrahim, and then so they say now they want to start like questioning.
Yes.
So then what happened? What's the event that happened with the Prophet Muhammad? What do we call that? It has a special name. What do we call that event? The Prophet come before Allah and asked him for the beginning of Zakat. What is it called? Ash-Shafa'atul Kubra, which is a major intercession. Ash-Shafa'atul Kubra. And then the Prophet was asked Allah to begin the account. And then what happened? The account begins. The Hisab. The account we mentioned it has different categories, different forms. So we covered them almost, and we still talked about different questions will be asked. Then what happened? We said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Maryam, He said, وَكُلُّكُمْ آتِيهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَرْدًا. Each and every one of you will come before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, farda, which means solo, on your own. When you stand before Allah Azza wa Jal, no one will be there next to you. You're going to be answered on your own. So you could say that how much time is going to take to go over all these people? Remember, time for Allah is absolutely irrelevant. So every individual is going to be standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to answer for their deeds, each and every one of us. So if you have done good, alhamdulillah. If you have done otherwise, blame no one but yourself. Because on that day, what is the concept of salvation in Islam? The concept of salvation is basically two things, very simple. Number one, your belief in Allah Azza wa Jal. Number two, your good deeds. This is how you save yourself. By strong faith and good deeds. Great records of good deeds. Regardless how much you try, if you don't have that strong faith and true sincere faith and believe in one God, it won't help you to have so much good deeds. And having a strong faith and strong belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will guarantee your Jannah eventually. But it doesn't mean you're going to go to Jannah straight forward, because you might have to pay, the price for some of the mistakes that you've done in your life. So as long as you have a strong faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a great record of good deeds, you're going to be fine, inshallah ta'ala. How would you know what did you do exactly? This is when we move on to the next station, inshallah ta'ala, and that station is called receiving the books or nashr al-kutub, the records. Whenever you go to an exam, what do you after you finish the exam, what do you wait for? The grade, right? So you receive the grade, and sometimes at the end of the exam, you will have an indication to what happens to you, right? When you come out of the exam, how do people speak about their experience in the exam? Everybody comes saying, oh my God, I messed up. But then subhanAllah, when the results come out, they're straight A's. Realize one of two things. Whether they're fooling you when they're saying messed up, so that to avoid jealousy and avoid hasad, or they truly didn't know that they've done great when they tried their best, mashallah. And that's why they get surprised when they get the results. So wow, mashallah, I didn't expect that. That's so generous, alhamdulillah. And they're so excited, they're so happy. This is what's going to happen on that day. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described that in such an amazing way. And this is mentioned in Surah Al-Haqqa. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, يَوْمَئِذٍ تُعْرَضُونَ لَا تَخْفَى مِنْكُمْ خَافِيَةٌ. Surah Al-Haqqa. He says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, يَوْمَئِذٍ تُعْرَضُونَ لَا تَخْفَى مِنْكُمْ خَافِيَةٌ. It is on that day when you're going to be exposed before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will be unable to conceal or hide anything. You can't hide anything at all from Allah Azza wa Jalla. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He described two different categories. He said, فَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينِهِ فَيَقُولُ هَوَاءُ اقْرَءُوا كِتَابِيَهْ. Those who receive their books in the right hand, they will say, read my book. It's coming next, inshallah. Here in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينِهِ فَسَوْفَ يُحَاسَبُ حِسَابًا يَسِيرًا وَيَنْقَلِبُ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِهِ مَسْرُورًا. This is Surah Al-Inshiqaq. So Allah says that as for those who are given their books in the right hand, He will be judged with an easy account. What is an easy account? Just to let them know what they have in their books. We're not going to make them pay the price for what they've done, and they're going to be okay. وَيَنْقَلِبُ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِهِ مَسْرُورًا, and return to his people in happiness. Like coming out of the exam, alhamdulillah, I made it, I passed. But do you know how much you got? No. You only know one thing. I passed. So this is now pass, fail. But then how much you passed, how much you failed, you're going to know that later. So the first stage is to know that you're going to be passing or not. Another example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes in the Quran, says, فَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينِهِ فَيَقُولُ هَاهُمُ اقْرَءُوا كِتَابِيَهْ. As for that person who will receive his book in his right hand, he will say, هَاهُمُ اقْرَءُوا كِتَابِيَهْ. Come and read my book. Come and read my book. The description of it is so vivid, brings these images, like animated image basically. This person grabs his book and he's so excited and he's looking what he has done. And now he wants to share the news with everybody. Like today, if you get something nice, if you get a good, let's say, degree or get certified or something, what do you do with it? You put it on Facebook. You take a picture of your certification, look what I got. People sometimes even, I remember one brother actually, he got certified for some sort of degree that he had. And he subhanAllah, he's a young guy. So he took a picture of his ID card. And he took a picture, he posted on Facebook, he says, look, I'm certified in the state of Illinois for blah, 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 blah. He has all the information on that card. So I texted him privately, I said, you know what, I think it would be smarter if you can see the ID number of this. Because I didn't think about that. So we take it down and just I said, somehow be careful with that. But you see, people, they get so excited about their achievement, they want to show it to everybody right away. And they're jumping, look, read my book. I knew it. I knew what the meaning of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah says, he or she will be in a pleasant life. Didn't mention details of that pleasant life, but you remember, if you deal with the most generous, you can expect a very, very pleasant life. Then, subhanAllah, reminds me, I used to keep bringing this example. When I was a kid, we were first grade at elementary school. Our teacher back then, before the age of stickers and all that stuff and so on, she had a stamp, one of those rubber stamps, that has the word Mumtaz, which means excellent, and nice beautiful stars with it. So every time we have an assignment in the classroom, when you finish, he tells you, if you finish, come to my desk. Show me your assignment. So you go to show the teacher the assignment, and if he sees that you've done it perfectly, he stamps in the page that basically that excellent. Sometimes they give you 2 stamps, also 2 Mumtaz or 3, depends on how much you do. And then he tells you to go around to show everybody else in the class. SubhanAllah, I remember those days, wallahi, until today, even though it's been a long time ago. But still, I remember the day when I used to take that notebook as a little kid, first grade, maybe second grade, and he would be walking around in the classroom to show everybody. Some kids, of course, they're so mean because there's so much competition between us. They just fake it that they're just working with their assignment. They don't want to look, they don't want to see. But you know what we do? You stop there and you shake it. Just, hey, look what I did. Means he has to see it. Why? Because you're so happy, you're so excited that you've done amazingly, that you got moved on. The same example, somehow we're so little, imagine what is at stake would be Jannah and Allah samawat wal. Because heaven, the weather which between the Jannah, the weather which between the heaven and the earth. So that's not just to show them in the report. You can just shake them and shake yourself and say, look what I've done. Which means, alhamdulillah, I passed. Remember, still passing degree grade right now, you don't know how much you passed. The A, B, C, whatever it is you passed. You shall know that later. The other category, the losers category right now. The losers category, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described it in 2 ways. He said, وَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ وَرَاءَ ظَهْرِهِ فَسَوْفَ يَدْعُو ثُبُورًا. But as for those for he who is given his record behind his back, فَسَوْفَ يَدْعُو ثُبُورًا, he will cry out for destruction, وَيَصْلَى سَعِيرًا, and enter to burning blaze. إِنَّهُ كَانَ فِي أَهْلِهِ مَسْرُورًا. Indeed, he had once been among his people happy. Which means he took his chance. And he wasted it when he was living that temporary life in this world. When he could have done better to receive the great ultimate eternal happiness in the heart. The other example I mentioned about the loser, she said, وَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِشِمَالِهِ. As for the one who is given his record in his left hand, how can we reconcile and combine between right hand, between left hand and behind his back? What does that exactly mean? Some of the ulama of tafsir, they say, some people, because they know that from the indications they got from the questioning and from the account, they realize, you know what, it didn't go well. Because you know, some of your friends, when they come out from the exam, what do they tell you? So how did it go? So, I don't think so. For sure, I failed. Even though they did not get the report yet, they didn't get the report yet, but they know that they failed. So what do? In this case, they're going to go and try to avoid receiving their books. So how do they avoid receiving their books? By hiding their left hand behind their back. But on the day of judgment, there is no cheating. You can't cheat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if you hide your left hand behind your back and spreading your right hand, hoping to receive it in your right hand, it's not going to happen. The book is going to fly and it's going to come and you stick with your left hand. The ulama, they describe the way these books are going to be spread and they're going to be given to people. It's not like giving it to you in your right hand. Here's your book, here's your book. It's not going to give it that way. They say, classical kutub means the books will be flying. The books will be flying. I don't know many of you perhaps maybe they watch some of these, Hollywood movies and Harry Potter and all the stuff and so on. SubhanAllah, I realize that many of these movies, really seriously, many of these movies, they take actually concepts from religious scriptures and religious traditions. Many of these concepts, the so-called magnificent magic, it's nothing but actually it's an imitation of the events of the future, of the events of the hereafter. Because that is impossible today, but it will be possible on that day. For example, the fruit coming your way, the trees moving and coming towards you, all that stuff and so on today, when you talk about it, it's magic. But if you talk about it from the context of the hereafter, that's the norm. Everything's going to be that way. You can even direct the water in paradise. We will speak about that later, inshallah. But for now, I want you to know that these are natural events will happen, inshallah, and in the hereafter. So here is the people, as they receive their books, they'll be standing like this, waiting for the books to come their way. As the books are flying, now everybody's living in a moment of anticipation. You can imagine now, like, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, you know, and boom, the book now sticks in your right hand. The moment the book sticks in your right hand, what does that exactly mean? You pass. And that is the moment that you're waiting for, you start jumping out of joy. And that's what Allah described in the Quran. Come, look and see what I've done. I passed. I knew that I'm going to be meeting my Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're so excited, they're so happy. Others just in anticipation, and some of them will know that they're doomed. They just hide their hand behind their back, but still the book will fly and stick in their left hand. The moment they get it, they go through these moments right now of sorrow and grief. I wish I never received my book. I didn't want to know my account. I wish that when I die, it was the end of it. So they're going to now kind of moments of remorse because they know. This is just like when you don't study very well for the exam, and then you know that you didn't do well in the exam anyway, but you're in disbelief, hoping that you might somehow pass, but then suddenly you get the report saying you failed. And that's when the moment of truth comes to you. You start now thinking about the past, the moments you wasted, your life, you didn't take it seriously, and now looking at other people jumping out of joy and happiness, joining different schools, different careers, and this and that, and you have to deal with your failure for the rest of your life. Now that failure, that moment of failure is very dangerous because if it was eternity, it must get out and Allah will pick you up from this video. So this is now spreading the books. Okay. Now as people grab their books in their hands and moving forward with their lives, they need to go and check how much they got. However, the way they get it is going to be scaled, it's going to be weighed. All their things are going to be put in a scale to weigh them. Before they do so, they are going to have to come to a certain station. That station is a station where it's called in the Arabic language al-Qisas al-Madalim. Al-Qisas al-Madalim, which means settling dues between humans, between people. So yeah, mashallah, I know that you passed, but you know what? You owe me something. Remember in dunya when you did so and so to me, you never got that back to me? Let's say somebody he takes money from someone and never paid back that money back. Never. Not because they were unable, it's just because they were procrastinating and they never took it seriously. They died, they never paid their dues back. You know what? You owe me some money. And what is most dangerous is when you owe people more than just money. You owe people your honor. You owe people their, backbiting, hurting their feelings, lying about them, causing them so much emotional damage, and so on. So all these things, this between husband and wife, brothers and sisters, anybody that's around you. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, do you guys know who the bankrupt one is? So everybody said, of course, you're also, but the one who has no money. He said, no, that's not the real bankrupt. The real bankruptcy is beyond money, beyond gold and silver. He said the real bankrupt is the one who comes to judgment day with deeds, good deeds like this. The mountains of Tiham. Do you guys have mountains? I don't think so, right? So if you ever see mountains, they're huge mountains. The Prophet ﷺ said, if you've been to Mecca, the mountains of Tihama are these mountains toward the south in Yemen. Huge mountains, you can see them from the horizon. So these people will come on judgment day with good deeds the size of the mountains of Tihama. However, with such great good deeds, they came and they lied about this. He said, they cursed this, they cussed at this person, they hurt this person, they did something to this person. So now, since judgment day, there's no exchange of wealth or anything but deeds. So they will start taking from their hasanat. If you hurt this person, you will take from them. Or they will take from you. And then eventually start placing take from each other. People, they can start asking out their dues. Even though, mashallah, your book says that you passed, and you think that you are, mashallah, you have so many records, so much great record that will pass it to Jannah, that doesn't mean you're going to have to pass straight to Jannah. You might have to still pay the dues, which might cause you to stop in a wrong station for some time before you eventually go to Jannah. So this individual will sit down, will wait until they settle their dues, and then finally, what is left of your record is what you can take it to the next station. And that is the way the good deeds all in land. So therefore, as a recommendation, the Prophet ﷺ said in the dunya, whoever wronged his brother or his sister with regard to his honor, which means in terms of moral issues here, like lying, backbiting, cheating, whatever that you done to them, or any other man, should seek his or her forgiveness today before there are no longer any dinar or dirham in gold or silver. And if he has any righteous deeds, they will be taken from him in accordance with the wrong he did. And if he has no hasanat, some of that sayyi'at, which means bad deeds of his counterpart, will be taken and added to his burden. So first of all, they take from your hasanat. If you run out of hasanat, and you still need to pay other people, they're going to take from their sayyi'at, their bad deeds, throw it on yours. So now you're carrying their bad deeds as well. Imagine that moment. How miserable a person will be at that time when they see that they're not just carrying their bad deeds right now. No, they have to carry the bad deeds of other people. That's so miserable at that time. So this is the very dangerous, and the Prophet recommends that if you have any problem with anybody in this world, you better fix it. If you know that you've wronged someone, you better go to her, go to him and say, I'm sorry, I apologize, I hurt you. Please be nice, forgive us. So eventually try your best to seek forgiveness from them. The question comes, what if I did my part, but they refused to accept my apology? What am I going to do now? You did your part. If you apologize, they insist and refuse to accept that, you have done your part, it should be okay, inshallah ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward them, and Allah will take care of you at that time. Then comes weighing the deeds. So I got my book. We came to the station to settle our dues. So whatever is left, hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, big enough to take me to the next station, inshallah, to Jannah right away, without having to pay anything afterwards. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنَضَعُ الْمَوَازِينَ الْقِسْطَ لِيَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ فَلَا تُظْلَمُ نَفْسٌ شَيْئًا وَإِنْ كَانَ مِثْقَالَ حَبَّةٍ مِّنْ خَرْدَلٍ أَتَيْنَا بِهَا وَكَفَى بِنَا حَاسِبِينَ. And we place the scales of justice for the day of resurrection, so no soul will be treated unjustly at all. Allah said the scales will be there and no one will be treated unjustly. That means when you say there's a scale, what do you expect from the scale to be? Very accurate and very truthful. Scales don't lie. So if you're heavy, you're heavy. And if you're not, then that's it. It's basically, if your scales that tell you that you won, you won. They tell us you lost, means you lost. They will not lie to you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِنْ كَانَ مِثْقَالَ حَبَّةٍ مِنْ خَرْدَلٍ. They're so accurate, they're so sensitive scales that they can even detect the weight of a mustard seed. If you put a mustard seed in one of those big scales, will it be detecting that? Absolutely not. But if you put it in a scale that is meant to measure diamond, for example, or even the micro elements that are used in specific industries, definitely will be able to detect that. This is exactly how accurate the scales of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The least of good deed that you have will be scaled, and the least of the value will also be put in the scale. What is al-mizan? Okay, so what is this scale? How does it look like? Is it a real scale? Is it a physical scale? Just like a kind of a moral scale, something just for us to understand? Number one, this is some of the things we know from the Prophet ﷺ regarding the scale. Number one, that the scale is real. The scale is an actual physical scale. So it's not just like a concept. No, it is an actual physical scale in which the deeds will be actually weighed. We also know that it's used to weigh the deeds of the people. It will weigh the deeds of the people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will use the scale to allow you to put your records there to weigh your deeds. It could be multiple scales, which means not just one single scale, everybody has to go at that scale. Instead, there are multiple scales, and everybody will be on one of those scales eventually. And it has two sides, or trays. Two sides, two trays. One, you put the good deeds, and the other one, you put what? The bad deeds. Because in home, when you have your books, the books comes in two parts. Part one, your good deeds. I hope inshallah will be much heavier than the bad deeds. So you put it basically here, and you put it there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَمَّا مَنْ ثَقُلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ, and that for those, as for the one whose scales are heavy, is with good deeds. So that means they will detect the weight of things. Of course, in a manner that Allah knows how. When they weigh that these things, they're going to be heavier. Alhamdulillah, if the good deeds are heavier than the bad deeds, you're safe. If the bad deeds are heavier than the good deeds, Allah musta'an, that means not a good sign. If someone being on the way to heaven and to paradise and hell, this person is going to have to be dealing with some challenge before they eventually get into paradise. What deeds are the heaviest in the mizan? If you know that they're going to be, this is going to be detecting the weight of good deeds, so you need to increase as much as possible. You need to increase your good deeds as much as possible. So what are the heaviest of all good deeds? Number one is La ilaha illallah. There is no God worthy of worship for Allah. The word itself, La ilaha illallah, is the heaviest in the scale. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Man qala la ilaha illallah, khalisan min qalbihi dakhala al-jannah. If anyone says, La ilaha illallah, I bear witness, there is no God worthy of worship for Allah, sincerely from the bottom of their heart, they will enter al-Jannah. Regardless of their needs afterwards. If they have that sincerity in the heart, they're eventually going to get into al-Jannah. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. That's why there's a hadith, the very famous hadith known as Hadith al-Bitaqa. Hadith al-Bitaqa. The hadith of the card. There's a man who's going to come on Judgment Day. This man, he didn't do well in his work. He did so bad. He did so bad that his deeds are so terrible. So when they brought him before that, of course, after they took all his deeds from here and there and so on, and eventually he left out with huge amount of bad deeds. Then they put the scale, it's already heavy on the left side of the scale. Then they say, so the man, he realized he's doomed right now. But they said, hell, what is this card you have in your hand? It's the card. That's all I have, my good deeds. Because what is it? Just take it. So what is it going to do against all these bad deeds? Just give me that card. So they take the card from him, and this card says, La ilaha illallah. Not this one, this is chocolate. Dark chocolate. But, I don't know, put it here. But eventually, It's basically La ilaha illallah. That card says La ilaha illallah. They put that card on the scale. The Prophet ﷺ said, فَخَاشَتُ الصُّحْرِ. All these bad deeds just start flying, which means boom, it just smashed everything and just threw everything off the scale. That single card was so heavy that it just destroyed everything else that's still again. How is that? How could that be? Because this statement, La ilaha illallah, was the most sincere. And I'll tell you why, inshallah. But before I say we can take the concept, how could one single card like this be heavier than huge amount of bad deeds? Now, if I tell you which one is heavier, which one is heavier in the scale? A ton of gold or a ton of cotton? Ton of cotton or ton of gold? Which one is heavier in the scale, Jama'ah? Huh? If I put a ton of gold on one side and a ton of cotton on the other side, which one is heavier in the scale? Are they equal? But this is cotton and this is gold. Yeah, but it's the same weight. It's 1 ton each, right? But how about the volume? Which one is greater in volume in terms of the size? Cotton, no doubt about it. How big? I don't know. It's going to be so huge. So in this case, if you put let's say a ton of cotton, which means that I might fill this entire building over here, and then you bring let's say you bring 2 pieces or 2 huge pieces of silver or gold, whatever other metal, for instance, and you put it on the scale. Most likely they might outweigh everything else, because even though they don't look that great in terms of size, in terms of weight, they weigh much more than a huge amount and volume of cotton. This is exactly what it means when you say La ilaha illallah is much heavier than their all these good deeds. SubhanAllah, La ilaha illallah can save people's lives in the hereafter. I remember a few years back when I used to live in El Paso, Texas. One time I was given khutbah al-Jum'ah. Before khutbah al-Jum'ah, a brother comes to me and says, Sheikh, we have a guest coming with me, inshallah. He's actually Hispanic, but he's in his 50s. And he wants to visit to, learn about Islam. Bismillah. So he sat in the khutbah, Friday khutbah, and I gave the khutbah. Eventually, after the khutbah was over, someone comes to me and says, Sheikh, quickly, the guy is crying over the people are up over his head. And I thought someone must have said something bad to them, whatever. I felt so bad. So I went quickly running, and I go through the crowd, get to the man is sitting there on the side, and he's weeping. He's crying like a baby. And I felt so bad. I said, oh my God, what happened? The member said, no, he's crying. So we pulled him, we took him to the office, and I spoke to him. His English is very good, he speaks Spanish. So the brother was learning between us to be careful what was going on. After the man cooled down, he felt so better, alhamdulillah. So I asked him, what happened? Anybody say anything bad to you? He goes, no. He said, Subhanallah, I've been living my life all these years. This is the first time in my life, ever, my first time in my life is so peaceful. That khutbah, the last half an hour, 45 minutes, just experience, subhanAllah, was the most peaceful experience in his entire life. And he was crying out of joy, out of happiness, how much he loved it. SubhanAllah, the man gave his shahada. He gave his shahada to become Muslim that day. But then, the next week after that, did not believe what happened. The brother called me and he said, by the way, this brother who just gave shahada, yes. But unfortunately, he was diagnosed with very advanced case of cancer. And that cancer is even, ironically, the cancer is actually his jaw cancer, in his throat, in his mouth. So he was unable to speak and speed up quickly, so quickly, that he was dying in no time. I went to the hospital there with him, and he couldn't even speak at all. He couldn't speak English, Spanish, Arabic, nothing at all. His family was there, and I spoke to him. I said, "You still, it was kind of when he saw me, he could feel in his eye, and he was excited. So I said, "You still believe that Muhammad Rasulullah?" He doesn't know what he said. So when he died, he requested to be buried as a Muslim. So we asked his family, the family volunteered to accept from us to take care of him. But then, subhanAllah, in the last minute, they changed their mind. They said, no, we're going to take care of him. Please, this and that, we tried to negotiate with him, we'll pay everything. We don't have to worry about anything, it was expensive. They said, no, we're going to take care of him. Eventually, we asked him to give us at least the last chance to go and do janazah for him in the funeral home. So they honored this for us, alhamdulillah. So when he was ready, he was in the funeral home. We went at night and we were started the shower with a group of brothers. We went all the way there, we lined up, behind the body, and we did salatul janazah for him. That was the last thing we did, and this we left. The man, since he gave us shahada, la ilaha Muhammad Rasulullah, until he died, didn't last, few months, maybe two months. Then he just disappeared. But what I can tell you right now, based on this hadith, I hope that this shahada he has given, la ilaha Muhammad Rasulullah, is the heaviest in the scale against everything else we done in Islam before that. So this is why this can definitely be the lifesaver. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. La ilaha illallah can be the lifesaver, the heaviest in the scale. So keep repeating that frequently in your mind. Keep repeating that frequently. Never stop saying La ilaha illallah. The Prophet said, the best form of remembering Allah Azza wa Jalla that I mentioned that I mentioned La ilaha illallah. The second thing he said, good manners. Wow. Good manners. Oh yeah. Why good manners are considered the heaviest in the scale? You see, you can claim yourself as much of a Muslim as much as you want. You can claim yourself as close to the Sunnah as you want. You can claim yourself to be the one who's following the example of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as much as you want. That doesn't warrant you the truth that you are truly following the example of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Your deeds will speak volumes about how much you are closer to the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some of us, and many of us, we think of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in regard to our Salah, our making wudu, our fasting Mondays and Thursdays, the devotional action. But when it comes to manners and akhlaq, unfortunately, we don't take this in account as part of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Yes, you claim to be much of a follower of the Sunnah, but you have rude manners. And the Sunnah doesn't mean that you have rude manners with other people. And the Prophet ﷺ himself, he said that some of the there is nothing heavier in the scale. He said, there is nothing heavier in the scale of the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than good man, the good behavior. And even he said, that those will be closest to me on Judgment Day in Jannah. Those will be in his proximity. The Prophet ﷺ in Jannah, when they come and they gather, those are best in their manner. Why so? Because the entire concept, the entire message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is submission to Allah, al-Islam, to believe in one God. What's the essence of that? The essence of that is to purify your manners and akhlaq. Didn't he say sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِيُتَمِّمَ مَصَالِحَ الْأَخْلَاقِ? I was sent to mankind to what? To perfect their manners. I was sent to people to help them perfect their manners and their akhlaq. So if your Islam, if your following of the Sunnah is not making you behave well and becoming a better person, then you are not really following the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Remember that good manners is the heaviest in the scale and brings you closer to Allah subhanahu to the Prophet ﷺ. Number 3, the Prophet ﷺ says, كلمتان خفيفتان على اللسان حبيبتان إلى الرحمن ثقيلتان في الميزان سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان الله العظيم. He said 2 words are very light on the tongue, very heavy on the scale, most beloved to the most merciful. These words are Subhanallah wa bihamdih, praise be to Allah, and we are thankful to Him. Subhanallah al-Azim, praise be to Allah, the one who is the greatest. These words are the heaviest in the scale. So if you repeat them, Subhanallah wa bihamdih, Subhanallah al-Azim. I praise Allah, and I'm grateful to Him, and I praise Allah, the one who is the greatest. These are the 2 words, Subhanallah wa bihamdih, Subhanallah al-Azim. Then finally, Alhamdulillah. The Prophet mentioned that also what is from the heaviest deeds of the abd, to be grateful and thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So being grateful and thankful to Allah also makes it, the heaviest in the scale. Make sure that you always say Alhamdulillah all the time. Any question about what's the amal? Yes.
Something of these. Is that the same as Sandra?
Al-Qantara is still coming up. Well, it depends on you. There's Al-Qantara and there's actually the darkness. This could be the Qantara where the Surah abuse is going to take place. Could be. And there's another thing called the tunnel or the darkness. It's going to come later. So Allah, this could be Al-Qantara. Contour is just like a bridge, not a bridge, but eventually just like a gate. People are not going to cross until they settle dues. Like you have to pay the taxes so you can get through. And the taxes here you pay to other people. How much you owe them, once you settle the dues, then you are allowed to come. No. Yes.
So for, I guess, the people that receive the fortune right hand, and those that receive it luck, some Muslims will first go to Jahannam, right? And then they'll be purified of their sins and then they'll enter Jannah. So with those receiving in their left, it's just like an immediate, like your next immediate destination.
When those people, the people who receive their books in the left hand, doesn't mean that they're going to go straight to Jahannam right away, or are they going to go through the whole process? Some actually are going to be taken straight from there. You see, Jannah, the road to Jannah and Jahannam is still, it's a different station, different events. And many people will be taken one group at a time. Of the last group that will be taken from that station to Jahannam, the last group, can you guess who the last group that will be taken to Jahannam? As a group. No, those who will be taken to Jahannam. They march towards Jannah and Jahannam right now. In the process, people will be falling and they will be taken to Jahannam. But there's one group in particular, will be the last group that will be taken selectively to Jahannam. Forget about those who will fall off the bridge. Now we're talking about one collective group will be the last one to be taken to Jahannam. The munafiqeen, the hypocrites. The hypocrites on the way, they always, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to question the hypocrites. Allah will not talk to them. He said He's not going to talk to them. They're not going to be approached at all during all these events. And as a result of that, what do these munafiqeen think is happening to them? They think that they will be overlooked. Oh my God, so no one is talking to us. Oh, this is awesome. Oh, so they pass this point and the other point and the other station and the other station. Every station they're passing, no one is even talking to them. That means, wow, we're good, we're good. So we're good, we're still good, we're still good. And then until they come to this point, right before the bridge, right before they cross over the bridge, that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the people into the darkness. And people that have light according to their deeds, the munafiqeen, they will be left with no light, and they start calling upon the people in front of them, wait for us until we get some light, and when they hear the voice, tell them, go back and get some light for yourself. So when they go back, a wall will be built, and they will be taken to Jahannam from there. That's when they realize that they've been deceived the way they have deceived the believers in the dunya. This is the time that they're deceived now. They thought, this is one of the greatest punishments, thinking that they're passing and they're doing great until the last moment. They're going to cross the bridge to be in paradise. It's over. This is the last station now. But then that's when they're taken to Jahannam. Now, you know what? That's a great deceit. Allah said, Allah. They think that they're deceiving Allah, but Allah is the one who's actually deceiving them. Allah. So, afterwards, from A'mal, there comes Al-Hawd. Yes, go ahead.
We're going from station to station.
Yes.
That's what's it's an earthquake into the trial tribulation make through some sort of event. We're going from station to station where there will be any opportunity for that time or account for anything.
To account for anything?
Yeah, so to make that or to say anything. I guess
on that day, the question, as people go from one station to the other, will there be any time for people to make dhikr and seek forgiveness and so on at that time? Nothing will count at that time. So that day will be just a day for reckoning and paying basically and payback. That's what's called Yawmul Deen, the payback day. However, some people, they'll make some good deeds that will save them on that. Some, we don't know who they are, particularly, but we're in the category. One of those categories, inshallah, is that man or woman could be, who after they settle their dues, this person was left with one single merit in his hand. Nothing. This is the one that he had. Not even La ilaha illallah perhaps. Something else. With La ilaha illallah, he had only one hasana, one merit. So then somebody else, he is left with one single merit to enter paradise. He has the record full except for one. If I can get one, they said, if you can get one, We can get you to it. So this man, he looks around, he goes to everybody, his mom, his dad, his brother, his sister, his children, his wife, his husband, her husband, anybody, basically to get them that hasana. And no one is giving them anything. Why? Because it says, this is my day. I don't care about you now. I need it. No, I need it. This could be the one that has saved my life right now. Finally, he gets to this individual. He says, by the way, I see that you have only one ticket. I don't know. Is it going to help you? No, it's not going to help you. So can I take it? I want ticket to pass. Because you know what? Just go ahead. Take it. I'm doomed anyway. Take it. So the man, this person gives the other person that ticket, and this person goes with a full record right now to pass, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask them where he got that ticket from, and Allah knows of course where he got it from. But eventually he said, you have a ticket from this individual, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, this day is my day, the day of Allah azza wa jalla. No one will be more generous than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that day. And Allah says, go and take the hand of that individual and take him with you to Jannah. See that person who gave up his final hasana, final merit, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved him by his grace to get into Jannah. So some of you might say, oh, so I have hope. Don't put yourself in this position. Allah, it's not worth it. You know, some say, how could Allah forgive him? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does whatever he wants. And this individual could be his punishment. It's just a feeling of pain and sorrow and anticipation of the agonies of going through that anticipation of punishment, basically, could be the only punishment he deserves. And therefore Allah will get him on. Yes. Does the punishment of a great experience from the sin? The answer is yes, it does. If someone goes through the punishment of the grave, can they go straight to Jannah? If that was the only punishment they deserved, I hope inshallah will be enough for them. Allah. We're going to come in later inshallah. Yes.
So the people who receive their books in the afternoon, is it possible that they still end up being in trouble after 7 years?
So if someone receives his book in his right hand, does it mean that he's going to get in trouble afterwards? After some of the Jews? There is possibility. There's still possibility, even if though that you receive the book in your right hand, you eventually will be saved. But you're going to have to maybe, be delayed for some reason. And this is going to come as they cross the bridge. We're going to see that at the end that some people will be missing. And the scripture of those people who are missing is ironic. Because you don't expect them to be missing at that day. But subhanAllah, even though it was such a great good deed, they will be missing. What? We'll see that in Allah. They're in Jannah, and they're going to be taken out afterwards. Any questions regarding this? Okay, so wasn't al-amal? Wasn't al-amal? We're done with that. Then what comes afterwards, people now, they start marching. Now they're being thirsty and tired and exhausted. The first taste of bliss that they might be presented with is to drink from the house of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it said that there is a house, and that house is like a water pool in which he would be waiting for his followers to come and join him. And that house, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam described of being so massive, so huge, the width of the heaven and the earth. The water is so sweet, it's so clear, and the cups that they have around it is the number of the stars. So eventually it's so massive, and the Prophet said he will be waiting for his ummah on al-hawd. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as he was walking back to his home, when on his deathbed, when he came back from Salah, he said to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, then remain steadfast, stay on my path. Basically, remain on my path until you meet me at al-hawd. Please don't deviate on my path. Don't deviate on the path of the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Otherwise, you're not going to meet him there. And as an evidence to this, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he would see a huge gathering coming, a huge crowd coming from a distance, and he would wish this to be his ummah. Then eventually he'll find them walking with Musa alayhi salam. Some of these are very Israel, the children of Israel. And then he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make his ummah greater. And the ummah, another bigger shadow comes from behind, and then will be the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. However, these people, as they will be marching towards the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, now they're rushing to meet the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, receiving the water from his hand, from blessed hand, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. some of the angels will come in between the Prophet and his people, steering some of them away from him. And as they steer them away from the Prophet, he will be kind of in distress, saying, Ya Rabbi, Ummati, Ummati, my people, my followers, my followers. The angels will say, إِنَّكَ لَا تَدْرِي مَا أَحْدَثُ بَعْدَكَ. You have no idea what they have done after you. Which means you have no idea how much they've changed after you. Changed what? Changed the ways of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the path of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not for the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That hadith refers to what? Al-bid'ah, innovation. Now, I know there's a huge challenge today for us to define sunnah and bid'ah because the paths are getting subhanAllah messed up too much for so many people. It's a very thin line that people they walk these days between being on the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and going off the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah makes them those who agree to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, another thing I want to remark, inshallah, being a true follower of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ means that you are at a very high standard of character. Remember that. Some people, they unfortunately, in the process of getting to that high standard of character following the sunnah, they mix this up with this ideological arrogance. Ideological arrogance. Meaning you become the only one who knows the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. You become the only one who's following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and no one else is worthy of your mashallah then. Why? Because you are the one who holds the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. That's not true. Be careful with that. That might lead to another form of bid'ah, which is the bid'ah of the akhlaq. The manners are become very good in the process of trying to help people follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. I remember a story was mentioned by one of our teachers one time. He said, in some cultures, like we have that in the Arab culture, after finishing the Farz Salah, what do the Arabs do in the Salah? They have a familiar with the Arab tradition after Farz Salah. They shake hands, right? They shake hands with people next to them. Have you ever seen that? Some people will shake hands with you, and they go somewhere shake hands of 3-4 people on the side, the left side, the right side, behind you, one of them. They do that. This is not from the Sunnah of the Prophet. It's not a tradition of the Sahaba. So there is no Sunnah of shaking hands after Salah. There is no doubt about it. But that doesn't mean to deny the people shaking the hand if they didn't know any better. So he said that there was one of those visitors come from the Arab world, coming for Hajj. This man was coming for Hajj. So he went to pray in one of those local masjids in Mecca. Now this man never been outside his country, never been outside his culture. So he doesn't know really this is right or wrong. He knows that after Salah what you do, you shake hands with people. But the locals in Mecca, perhaps they know different. So eventually this man, after he finishes Salah, he wants to shake hands with the guy next to him. Like says, Salam, Allah. The man next to him, the local, he pushed his hand away and said, Bid'ah! It was so offensive in a way that even that poor man, he immediately spontaneously answered back by saying, يعني إلا تزوج سنة. And being rude is sunnah. He said, if this is bid'ah, fine, I understand. But being rude to me is the sunnah. So subhanAllah, yes, in the process of implementing the sunnah, sometimes we create a lot of, not ideological, but moral bid'ah, akhlaq and the way that we treat people. If the Prophet ﷺ, he saw someone urinating and he held the people back away from him until he reasoned with them and why this is wrong and why we shouldn't be doing that. Imagine the responsibility that we have if we follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, how much responsibility it is. This hadith is very scary hadith. Each and every one of us should be scared from that moment. You could be one of those that be steered away from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. You need to make sure that you do follow the sunnah of the Prophet, but you follow the sunnah in everything. In terms of manners, in terms of ideology, in terms of practice, in terms of ibadah, devotion and non-devotion. You follow the example of the Prophet ﷺ in all of that. After people now drink from that house, the Prophet described the drinking from the house, the water of that house actually, before that, the water of this house, water pool comes from a river that springs from underneath the throne of Rahman, goes through the Jannah all the way down until it gets into a house. So there, he said also the Prophet ﷺ, people when they drink from that house, they will never experience thirst at all after that. That's it. So if they drink afterwards, they don't drink because they're thirsty, they drink only for the pleasure of drinking, that's all. So this is now the reward that you get instantly right after a long wait and long incidents that happened during that day. Then when they're done, they're thinking about how they move on next. What is the next station for them right now? They should be heading to As-Sirat al-Mustaqim. As-Sirat. What is As-Sirat? As-Sirat is this very, we're going to explain to me that thin bridge that goes across Jahannam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised every single human being, a believer or non-believer, they shall be going over Jahannam. They shall go over that bridge. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَإِن مِنْكُمْ إِلَّا وَارِدُهَا كَانَ عَلَى رَبِّكَ حَتْمًا مَقْضِيًّا. There is not one of you but will pass over. You must pass over hell. This is with your Lord, a decree which must be accomplished. Does it mean that it's a punishment for them? No, not necessarily a punishment. Some it will be punishment. But for the majority who go to Jannah, what's the purpose for them from going over Jannah? The purpose of this is to be like a final reminder. A final reminder for them what you're going to be escaping and how grateful you should be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved you from what you're going to be going over. This is so scary movie. Now, before getting to this point of Sirat, there is a final station was not mentioned actually in the slides over here. That station is called, some of them they call the Qantara, which means like a gate. And other ulama they call it the tunnel, which is the darkness. It's a darkness, state of darkness before you get to this As-Sirat. Like tunnel, dark tunnel, so they can have to go to, and they need to go to As-Sirat, the bridge. What is this tunnel? This tunnel or this darkness is that when all the people as they will be marching through to get to As-Sirat, so they can go to their final destination, that's paradise or hellfire, they come into this space of that's full of darkness, and they need some light to help them to go through. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that in Surah Al-Hadid, and the light that they receive, يوم ترى المؤمنون يسعى نورهم بأيديهم وبأيمانهم. The believers as they will be walking and marching, and the light would be actually shining in their right hand and in front of them from their faces. So the light that people they get and they emit from their faces, from their hand, is equivalent to their good deeds. So those who have great good deeds, mashallah, they won't even worry about that. Because it's so bright, so shining in front of them, that they don't have to worry about anything. They just keep marching and going because it's all bright in front of them. Some people they have less good deeds, so the brightness of the light is not as great. Some of them, the Prophet described that their light will be so little, like a torch in their hand, so they just barely can see in front of them. And some people they have even less and less light. The greatest light they have is just their toes shining the next step in front of them. And some people will be dark. Now, what's the significance of this light and these different levels of degrees of light? Can you guys guess? What would that do to the people at that time? What would happen to them? Yes. So what does that mean? How fast they can move? So what happens when the people move at different speeds?
How long you look at Jahannam?
This basically does what to the people? Classifies them. And the order, and basically kind of groups the people already. So that those who reach and arrive at As-Sirat will be those who are the fastest. And then those are less faster, the less and the less and the less and the less. So that Qantara, or that darkness, will be the place and the space where people are going to be now classified and put in categories. Because when you move at different speeds, the fastest arrives first, and then those will come next and next and next and so on. So some of the people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet mentioned that they will have no light whatsoever, and Allah described in the Quran that they asked the people ahead of them, wait for us, wait for us, let us get some light with you, so we can walk with you. So they will receive an answer saying, go ahead and look behind you. Go back, go back and get some light from there, so you can come forward. So when they try to go to get some light, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, an entire barrier, an entire wall will be built between them to separate it, like a wall that sits closer to them. These are the slowest people because they didn't have light, so they were the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, and the wall will be built, and they will be taken straight to Jahannam. That's what they realized that in the scene with all these, incidents of looking over, that their deeds and what they've done. They think that they're safe, but they were not. They were just deceived. So taken to Jahannam. Now the people who keep going and crossing, they will get to a moment when they all come out of this darkness, safe, but then they have to go now and see Jahannam. They see Jahannam. They see the fire of God. Now they're going to come cross the Jahannam because you cannot get to a Jannah unless you cross the bridge. Can you imagine the frustration in that moment? After going through all the atrocities of the Day of Judgment and the hereafter, and now it's Alhamdulillah, finally, the last station. But then, oops, Jannah is there, and you can see Jannah is there, but you can't go to Jannah unless you go across that bridge. The last station before you get to the bridge. And that's why they say that in the Arabic language, actually, we have a proverb speaking about people who are kind of like the happiest people and the most joyful people are those who will cross the bridge. So it's in the Arabic language, and if you want to speak about somebody like MashaAllah, take it that you say, is MashaAllah, Kanu Sirat. And they say that about the Egyptians, actually. They don't have Egyptians. Any Egyptians in Iran? MashaAllah. They have some Egyptians there. One of the Mu'arrikheen, one of the Egyptian historians, not the Egyptians, but one of those visited Egypt in the past. He said, when I got into Egypt, when I entered Egypt, and they say it's about Skindaria and Cairo and these places, said, I found the people of Egypt as if they've already crossed the bridge. Yeah, basically they were very happy, living mashallah, joyful life, like there is no accounts coming tomorrow. It wasn't a compliment, to be honest with you, but eventually, he said, I felt those people that live the life of those who already crossed the bridge. So you go to Egypt, mashallah, I don't know if it changed or not, but mashallah, they're very happy people all the time. Allah bless them. Bless them with guidance and bless them also with justice. So they say that once you cross the bridge, that's the end of it. And that's why it's one of the scariest moments, even the Anbiya themselves will be waiting there, waiting for everybody to cross the bridge. Allah said, all shall be going crossing over the bridge. And what is the meaning of this bridge? How does it look like? And what is the description of this bridge? The Messenger of Allah mentioned it actually in the hadith. He said, as for the bridge for Sirat, it is a very thin bridge. It's thinner than even the hair, but it's sharper than a sword. Sharper than a sword. How could it be sharper than a sword? Actually, the thinner it is, the more sharper it is. Do you know, you're familiar with paper cuts? Paper can cut you, right? How many times do you have these cuts here? Maybe the younger generation don't know that because they use right now digital books, right? They use iPads and all that stuff. Back in the day, we used to read books. Because paper books, you know what it's called? There are two cardboards on the side, we call them your cupboards. And a lot of papers inside, it's very fun and beautiful. They have a lot of words in there, you really enjoy it. Do you ever had a book? Anyway, so as thin as the papers are, they can touch you. They can really touch you. So that sword, that sirat, or that bridge, is so thin and so big. The Prophet ﷺ also described it slippery. It's very, very slippery. As you try to walk on that thin line, it's very slippery. So how are you gonna be able to go through it? Your deed will help you go through it. Your deed will act like the engine that will help you balance and go full speed. The Prophet ﷺ said some people will be crossing over the spread, the speed of wind, the breeze, some of the speed of the lightning, the speed of the engine of eye, the speed of this, the speed of light. So different speeds again based on their duty. All these are good indications for them. Some people they'll be trotting like horses. Some people will be going jogging. Some will be walking. And among those who are going to be suffering maybe the most will be those who will be crawling. The Prophet ﷺ people will be just holding to it and will be crawling. And when people crawling over Jahannam, what do they get out of it? they get scorched from the side. So the fire comes there to their body and starts basically hitting them on the side. So by the time they cross the bridge, they're already blazed and scorched. So they have suffered a lot from the heat of that fire. But that will be the maximum punishment they're getting, or the last form of punishment they will get before they are purified and get into Al-Jannah. Because when they get into Al-Jannah, they're not going to have these marks, these burn marks on their body, to be clear. But that will be the last of their suffering. Also, the description of that sirat, the Messenger of Allah said that sirat will have khatatif, hooks. And these hooks he described as Shawk al-Sa'dan. Shawk al-Sa'dan, these are hooks that are known in the desert of Arabia. You know, just like the stickers when you want in a pastor, there's a spring or in the summer when they stick on your clothes, your eye, or clothes, and so on. Something similar to that. If it catches you, it's tough to take it off. So the Prophet said these are hooks will be around that bridge. So as people crossing, as they cross, these hooks are instantly trying to help the people take them off. If you look at some of these, even just like I said, some Hollywood movies, literally they take some of these concepts of the Akhirah and they apply it in their movies as games, or maybe some sort of obstacles in their quest for adventures, whatever. And it's similar to this. So these khatatif, as people try to cross the bridge, they're going to try to take them down. Some of them, as the Prophet says, فَمِنْهُمْ مُسَلَّمٌ. Some people are safe. He's not going to be touched at all. And some of them, he says, وَمَخْدُوشٌ. مُسَلَّمٌ مَخْدُوشٌ. Some will be saved, but they will get cuts. So the hooks will not be able to catch them. It's not going to catch them, but eventually they will scar them. And that perhaps will be the maximum punishment they deserve. And then he said, وَمِنْهُمْ مَكْدُوسٌ عَلَى رَأْسِهِ فِي نَارِ جَهَنَّمَ. Some will be taken by his hooks and will be thrown to Jahannam on their heads. So the Prophet ﷺ described them as three categories. Musallam, saved one with scars, who are going to be doomed in Jahannam. So they're going to be punished in Jahannam. Still, they're going to finish the description. It's an amazing description. Yes, sir.
Are those people worse than the Munafiqeen? Because the Munafiqeen have already been thrown into Jahannam, but these people are getting farther than the Munafiqeen had done.
No one is worse than the Munafiqeen. But these are just, they're going to stay there for a short period of time. We're going to mention that period right now. So what happened? The Messenger of Allah said that on that day, the messengers and the prophets will be the first to cross the bridge. When they cross the bridge, what do? They stand by the bridge on the two sides, on the banks of the fire basically. And the Prophet said, وَدُعَاءُ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ يَوْمَئِذٍ اللَّهُمَّ سَلِّمْ سَلِّمْ اللَّهُمَّ سَلِّمْ سَلِّمْ. And the dua of the Anbiya, the supplication and the application of the prophets and the messengers on that day will be nothing but, oh Allah, give them safety, Ya Allah, give them safety. Just give them safety, give them safety, Ya Allah, give them safety. And as the people keep crossing, they keep crossing, they keep crossing, everybody now is concerned. No one yet is looking around. Everybody's just looking at the bridge, they're waiting for the gate to be over with. Until the last person who's crawling arrives. When the last person crawls arrives, now that alhamdulillah, everybody's here. Everybody's here, let's see, let's go through that. This is the time when people start recognizing each other as the people of Jannah. Because now it's over. So now they start looking around, is he here, is she there? Was my brother, was my sister, this and that, subhanAllah. As they look, they now find that somebody is missing. Now this is when you realize that your community, mashallah, bring you all together for the You start looking at each other. Where's the Muslim? Where's the brother that used to do this, and the sister used to do this and that, and so on? You're talking about good people come to the masjid, they're very regular in the salah, and they're missing. And at that time they're missing somewhere else. That's not Allah, because it's all from Jahannam. So the Sahaba, the Prophet said, then they ask Allah Azza wa Jalla, Ya Rabbana, and that's the description of the people, Ya Rabbana, Ikhwana, كانوا يصلون معنا ويصومون معنا يا رب. Our Lord. These are our brothers and sisters. They used to pray with us. They used to fast with us. We don't see them anymore. Look how scary they are. They pray, they fast. Let alone saying La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So even La ilaha illallah saves the person to be the heaviest in the scale. Some people, even with such heavy card on the scale, the level of sincerity was not maybe up to par. The level of good deeds was not up to standard. Yes, they have, alhamdulillah, the essentials, but they never follow through with their iman and their sincerity and their ikhlas and their ibadah and their sunnah. That's why, yes, they've done a lot of good deeds like salah and fasting, it wasn't sufficient enough to save them from the punishment. Yes, you might have prayed the 5 daily prayer, but if I ask you what you recited in the surah, you have no clue what you recited. Because the salah became so mechanical. No one got the ibadah depending on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So was that beneficial to you? Some people, they fast the month of Ramadan, and at the end of the month of Ramadan, they celebrate by breaking the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because alhamdulillah, I'm done with that. So eventually the fast of the month of Ramadan was not that beneficial to them either. It's because of that, they end up in Jannah. So Allah Azza wa Jalla gives the believers now the chance to go and take them out from Jannah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to them, says, okay, go and look into Jahannam, and if you see them there, take whoever you find that has a way of a dirham, a dinar in iman. The way of a dinar. Dinar is just like the golden dollar, for example, the size of a dollar coin. That is in iman of iman. If they have this much faith in their hearts, take them out. And Allah will spin the bodies of the believers. They go into Jahannam and they take these people out. How can they see them? Allah will make it easy for them to recognize the signs of faith, like the signs of wudu, the signs of salah and sujood. They'll all be shining because Allah will not allow these parts to be destroyed by fire. So they will recognize them, they pull them out. So when they come out, then they say, Ya Rabbana, we still have missing some people. They go, okay, go back there and look for the people who have the amount of so much of iman, such as the amount of a quarter, for example, of iman. Get them out. So they go back and they take them out. And then they say, we still have missing some people. So Allah subhanahu gives them the chance to go repeatedly, to go and take people. And it takes time to get them out. For everybody who stays longer, that's perhaps the time of punishment they deserve to be in Jahannam. And then finally they get to that way off and a speck of a dust. If they have that much weight of iman and faith in their hearts, get them out. So they take them all out, and then finally they say, Ya Rabbana, no one is left in Jahannam except those who have been detained by the Quran. And what does that exactly mean? That's referring to the ayah in Surah An-Nisa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna Allah la yaghfiru an yushraka bih, wa yaghfiru ma duna dhalika liman yasha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will not forgive associated partners with Allah anymore. And He forgives whoever He wishes subhanahu wa ta'ala besides Him. So Allah made a promise that anyone who comes worshipping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or associated partners or equals to Allah Azza wa Jalla, will not be forgiven. Anything else besides that, Allah is willing to forgive. Regardless how great that sin is, Allah is willing to forgive it. No guarantee though, but Allah is willing to forgive us subhanahu wa ta'ala as long as it doesn't get to the level of associate or studied partner of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then finally when the believers all now get together, that's when they start marching and they go to the gates of Al-Jannah. When they get to the gates of Al-Jannah, and now the gates are going to be open, but there are other incidents will happen inshallah ta'ala. But that's a different story. Before we get to the story of Al-Jannah, we need to talk about Jahannam and the hellfire. However, let's take inshallah ta'ala a Q&A session on that here. So we take a session inshallah before we take a break and get ready for some Lord inshallah. When we come back after the break, we'll be talking intensively about Jannah and Jahannam. But of course, we start with Jahannam first, and then we'll give you the good news inshallah and talk about Jannah and Jahannam. So any question about the hereafter? From the time of resurrection all the way until that moment, the mother was asking. Yes. For those who associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but have done great good deeds, if they have benefit from these good deeds at all, well, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was asked about a man named Abdullah ibn Jum'ah. Abdullah bin An was an extremely generous man in the time he dated Islam. The Prophet himself remembered him because he attended his house. This man was so generous that the fire in the house, in front of the house, never set because he had a built, what do you call it, built-in house where they always cook food for people. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, until he died. Always generous, this man. So he was also a very well-known honorable person. So Aisha, one time she asked the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, what does Ibn Bid'an benefit from what he has done? He said, the Prophet said nothing. In the Akhirah, the hereafter, he said nothing because he never said, Rabbi Allah, never attributed that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, they get their word of religion. Like what? The good mention, the good reputation. Look at us, even today, 1500 years later, we still talk about Allah subhanahu who was a very person. He got his mention, was never forgotten. People today, they get their name to what? Have been dedicated to the time to represent in hospitals and universities and that and so on. So whatever they've done, they get their reward in this dunya. But with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they should actually get only if they have the people. And that's the belief in one God and also work for one. Those who died before Islam, these are different stories. These are called from the people of Al-Fatra. Al-Fatra is that intermission, that period between two periods. When there is no guidance in between, the truth becomes so distorted that they do not have no access to it. Or even they lived in a time that they had no access to proper knowledge at all. Take the example of the Amazon studies. They have tribes, people, they have no access to civilization whatsoever. They don't know what God is, they don't know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, they don't know what the Quran and they don't even know what Christianity is. They have private religions, they live on their own. So these people, if they die, then we are to blame actually for not getting guidance and for getting reached out to them. But if they die, they are in what we call al-fatra, they are left to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And rules of dunya and rules of this world, we count them as non-believers because they died non-Muslims. But in true rules of the akhirah, they are between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, between them and Allah. Between them and Allah. Now, any question, sister? Okay, yes.
Can a person drink from the house still as well?
Can someone who drinks from the house, the water pool, can this person still go to Jahannam? It doesn't look like that because the Prophet ﷺ said that when they drink, they will never suffer thirst. Wallahu ta'ala. No, Allah. Yes. After you find it, right?
Yes. The people, the non-Muslims that we see today, when they die, can we even think on our heart that they may go to Jannah? Because there are a group of Muslims who think sometimes that these people, they are non-Muslims, but we cannot say that they actually go to Jannah. What can you understand?
I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you guys hear the question? And some people today, they say that the people of other faiths, when they die today, that they might be going to Jannah. Is that true or not? Maybe because it's a matter of interfaith, living in diverse communities and so on. So it's very hurtful to say about them that they're going to end up in Jahannam on the fire of hell and so on. Well, subhanAllah, it has two elements of it. Number one, from a theological perspective, almost every other religion believes in the same fashion about other religions. If you ask Christian, Jewish people and so on, so they only believe they are the same people. So don't feel embarrassed to believe that Muslims. Also, they say that, you know what, that's the belief in Allah. Second, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا إِلَهَ. They disbelieve those who claim that Allah is one of three, which means Trinity. And disbelieve those who claim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Son of God. Allah said that they are disbelieved, so it's very obvious. It's very clear that they are disbelieved. Now again, this is the rule of dunya for us. If they die, we believe they died non-Muslim. And of course, eventually, if someone dies non-Muslim, what we know from the Quran and the Sunnah that they end up in Jahannam. Rules of the Akhirah, these are different. This is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are to Allah azza wa jalla. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might judge some of those people who appeared to us as non-Muslims. because they never had a true message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, true message of Islam. They were very sincere in terms of believing in Allah, but they have a distorted image. That's between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But ultimately, we say that actually they're not Muslims, they're in Jahannam. Allahu A'lam. So there's no politics about this response about this issue. I hope it's clear, inshallah. Remember, they're actually in Jahannam. They're not Zulfan. Although the akhirah that's between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah Azza wa Jalla, He said to Himself, and He subhanahu wa ta'ala, after the people of the Jannah enter the Jannah, and the people of Jannah already said, those who are detained in Jahannam, who are these people? These are the people who were detained by the Quran. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will select a group of people from Jahannam, and He will put them there. Who are these people? They don't know. Why would this work? How the selection was made? Allah, is it random? There's no such thing as random with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah doesn't do anything arbitrary. So whatever selection Allah made subhanahu wa ta'ala by His wisdom, by His hikmah, He chose some people from the people of Jahannam and He put them in Jannah. For what reason? Allah ta'ala. Now, this one.
Yeah, just reflecting on this question.
Now,
because what we have is that sometimes, when we take it as general, non-Muslims, Christians, Jews, Ahlul Kitab, in general, are they going to go to Jannah or not? The answer is clear. And this non-Muslim should really say that have a gray area. It's straight from the Quran.
That's what
we don't do that as such. But the point is that if it comes to a particular person, is he going to go to paradise or is he going to hellfire?
We don't know. So again, in general, yes, we believe the time is to be on those beliefs that they are the people of Jahannam. But individually, this is between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and these are the rules of the akhirah, the rules of the hereafter. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rules between them and the wicked subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes.
Talking about the distinction between Barzakh and actual, the heavens.
Yes.
We know from Sa'ad and Raj, the Prophet and prophets, and heavens and stuff, and all the portraits in the heavens. Do we say that we're going to be all time in the same spot after we pass away, or when does that mistake actually take place?
Well, the heaven is actually the seventh heaven. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the destruction of the heavens and the earth, the seven heavens as we know them right now might not exist, but only one heaven. And that is the one where the Jannah and Jahannam, and the resurrection will take place, and the Hashr will take place as well. Again, the Aradin Sabi' or Samawat Sabi' all being destroyed. Allah ta'ala. Now. Yes, sir. Salam.
What are the classifications is when the babies were born into this classified state, from there we carry on. So basically, that they all are housing relationships when they form.
Yes.
So very interesting.
Okay.
And then the classification is done according to the parentage, whatever the parent basically is.
Okay.
So if in that case, we are not teaching to that people. We are questioning.
Of course we are questioning. I mean, why are we living in this society already? Honestly, it's a shameful, since you bring this issue up to Muslims. The history of Muslims. I remember actually having one of the priests in my community when I was living in our castle. We used to, mashallah, get together and meet and talk and discuss many things together. And in a very friendly way, mashallah, very respectful way. So one time he tells me, he says, what I admire about you Muslims? I said, yes. That every single Muslim is actually a missionary. I said, explain to me, how is that? Because when I was traveling to Muslim countries, people, you can tell that the average person in the street, the Muslim, the average person, when he interacts with you, they talk to you, and sometimes they ask you if you smoke, if you have a cigarette or something like that, and so on. So they're not very practicing Muslims. But when they see you such a very good person to their standard, they say, are you Muslim? And then you say no, they say, so why don't you become a Muslim? For them it's just that simple. Why don't you become Muslim? SubhanAllah. It's just like I said, every single Muslim acts like a missionary at their own pace and speed and so on. So that's so ironic about Muslim and Islam. However, the Muslims today, unfortunately, unfortunately, they're not a representation of Islam anymore. Really, they're not a representation of Islam. Because when it comes to Islam, many communities, they put so much effort, they put so much money in da'wah activities, printing flyers, books, CDs, Islam awareness week in schools and all the stuff and so on. You put so much resources in this when the best way of da'wah is really just act like a Muslim. That's it. You don't have to tell them how great Islam is, because people are smart. They know you're different. When you don't behave in a certain way like they expect from other people, when they see you very honest, very decent, very this, very that, and so on, in a different way on regular, way and so on, they can tell that you're so different. What makes you so special? And when you know that you're a Muslim, they volunteer to become Muslim. This is how Islam spread in countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia, these countries over there in the East. This is how Islam spread in Africa, in Central and South Africa, and East Africa as well. No sword, no army went in there. It's just that the Muslims, they just traveling there. They were merchants, they were trading with the people. They used to live and reside over there for their businesses. They married from these societies. And subhanAllah, with their manners and their akhlaq, they conquered the world. Today, our akhlaq, our manners are very pathetic. We can't even conquer our homes. I don't want to conquer anyone's akhlaq or manners. SubhanAllah, even I remember in the Muslim Ummah, I don't think the Muslim Ummah is in a weaker position any time in the history of Islam. Even in the time of the Andalus, when the Muslims were forced out of Andalus, in the 1492, but look at this, 1492, when the Muslims, they had to give up the last kingdom, Granada of Spain. And they signed the treaty to basically give up on the kingdom of Granada. They did. But then in the 1500s, that's 8 years later, there was a rebellion happened because they were not meeting the treaty, provisions and so on. Some of the Muslims were forced into Catholicism. The Christians were given the access to the Muslim land, so they started kind of settling from these villages and places far away to come and live in the Muslim land and the territories of Arab. You know what happened? The Muslim tradition and the Muslim culture was so strong that there were cases of conversion among the Catholics who moved into the Muslim territory. The Muslim culture was so strong that some of these Christians, the old Catholics, who came down south in Granada territory, they started adapting the Muslim way and the Muslim clothes and garments and fashion even. It's reported in the history of the church even, that the Pope in the Vatican, he had to issue a papal verdict or vote to ban the faithful Christians, or that kind of Christians they call them by the Catholics. He banned them from adopting the ways and the method of the emperor, the Muslims at that time. He banned them with a papal vote issued. You are not allowed to do that. Any tailor who were designing any Muslim garments, they will be fined if they designed this for a non-Muslim, for Catholics. They can do it for the Mauritius among themselves, but they can't do it for the Catholics. And you think this will just get disappeared? No. The following maybe a couple of months later, in the 1530 plus, around those years, another papal verdict was issued to remind the people banning these traditions again. So even after they lost their political power, the culture was still strong, tradition was still strong, theology was still strong, the akhlaq and the manners were still strong. Unfortunately, the Muslims today in the West, we are in the weakest position. Our akhlaq, our manners, our traditions are so weak. We are adapting the fashion of other cultures. We are adapting the manners of other cultures. We are adapting the akhlaq of other cultures. When subhanAllah, the akhlaq of the Muslims should be basically at a high standard of character like the Prophet ﷺ. That is how it's supposed to be. But unfortunately, we fail. That's the problem. So again, when it comes to saying, are we responsible for the people today that we live among over here? My answer to this is yes. Honestly, I would like to ask every single Muslim over here in this community, whether you are virgin or you came here Muslim, alhamdulillah, how many people can you claim that you got to Islam? How many people? How many people you invite into Islam? How many people you just have good relations with them that they see Islam to you? How many? You don't have to invite them by saying, why don't you become Muslim? Say la ilaha illallah. You don't have to do that. Simply, how many people you interacted with that day, alhamdulillah, became Muslim? Because of your faith and because of your akhlaq, because of your work. If you haven't done that yet, then I think you're wasting your time in this life. Wallahu a'lam. Yes. Father, Sheikh Al-Amin told us that there is no need for you to say salam and ask the question. But wa alaykum salam wa rahmatullah.
What should we do to overcome? We as Muslims know that we're not doing what we should do, and what non-Muslims doing what we should do. What should we do? What can we do that from now? Every month, every community, every month, and do the stuff we should do. Very difficult thing to ask about this after I forgot the person who was doing too, and his son was that. And he invited Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to his house. And Prophet went to the house and he read the Quran, he sat right next to the door and brought back. So he actually, right before he died, he accepted Islam and he's going to send himself. Now, we always spoke that good money is going to happen and good money is going to happen.
We don't want it.
Allah knows that non-Muslims, why should we be focusing so much on this that we should be start doing something with the Muslim community to do the right thing?
I agree with you. I mean, that's what I'm saying. If we behave well, we don't have to invite people to this. Allah, people, they will come and answer you. You know, it's so funny when you mentioned this story about the Jewish man next to the Prophet his neighbor and son. When I used to live in Al-Qasr, actually, one of the early times, the early years when I was living there, my neighbor next door, we lived at some point in a duplex. The neighbor next door, I didn't know that though, but it was later that we read about that. The neighbor next door was actually a lady who works in the club. I mean, she basically, I don't want to mention the title, but you know, she's the dancer, the first dancer in the club. I really had no clue that this was the case. But you know, I felt so bad because she was very young. Her parents were very respectful parents. Very basic, you know, mashallah, they're very decent family. And I felt so bad that their daughter, who was 17, 18 years old, was born in my house. And I was shocked when I realized what she was doing, because their mom told me, well, she's illegally doing that in the club, and blah, blah, blah. And I just, wow. Really, she dropped out of high school, she got involved in the club and all this stuff and stuff. So, one time, I can tell that she was sitting outside the place, you know, by herself. And then my wife, she told me she made some sweet that she gave me keys to go give it to her. So I went out and said, I gave it to her. I said, you know what, I'll take this. So she got that. And she said, thank you very much. I told her, may I ask what question? She said, go ahead. So I started speaking to her nicely, nothing about Islam or Muslims or say, I don't know, we're going to go to Jahannam, whatever. Nothing like that. It's just like speaking to her for humans with a human. In a nice way, I said, you know what, you don't have to do that. I said, you're very young, you have a very promising future, if you need any help, we can help you. Let us know. I would love to come and join me. I have a class tonight with it was the latest class actually. Come and join me. Just come and listen, meet some people, meet some new friends, get to know other people. You might like that company better than the one that you're in right now. SubhanAllah, she was just listening without even commenting a word. And finally, when I finished, she goes, you know, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. She said, you know, you're the first person who ever treated me like a human being. I'm like, wow. It was so obvious to come. Wallahi, she was willing to come, but unfortunately her mom refused to send her. And her mom said, no, we're Catholics, we don't go to the Islamic Center, we're Muslim mosques. I said, come on. Just let her come. Let her just do it. She's already actually normally. We had to leave the apartment or the house there because it was so bad, because eventually people with drugs and so we had to leave the place. I met her family afterwards a few times, and I heard some of the terrible stories that happened to this family. I felt so bad that I didn't push him, just to make sure that, you know what, at least we can talk. Let's talk about it. Let's just get you out of this mess. I mean, there's so many people out there, so many stories you can relate to yourself. I have multiple stories like this. Different stories, different scenarios. My point is that the best way we start is start with ourselves. Now, I don't know about the humanity over here, the humanity, the Sheikh Yaser. I don't know how active you are guys in the outside community, but we have no choice but to be active inside and outside the Muslim community. If we think that just, because we live in such an ocean of non-Muslims and so on, it's better to stay in our own bubble, that's one of the biggest mistakes, actually. Because eventually, it's not start eroding from the inside. You have to be open to the public, and you have to be prepared for that. If you feel you're not ready for the public because, the masjid is designed, the masjid is this and that and so on, then you need to raise the fund for it. If you don't have da'wah committee, you need to bring one. And the da'wah committee doesn't have to be outreach. It can also start with inreach. By making da'wah to the own community, the Muslims. And then it starts going from outside. So the point is that we are responsible. As we live over here, we are responsible to be someone I don't want to take this question about this subject because we have a subject here. So if you got a question about the subject right now, let's take this question first and we can come back again to talk about it. So, this is a very question. Many questions from the brother. Go ahead.
Some opinions that the howl is after the sirat.
No, the howl after the sirat.
The howl is actually after the sirat rather than before. There are some opinions.
So how about the people who will be taken away from the howl? Because after sirat there is no punishment. There's Jannah right away. And if they were staying away from the howl, most likely that is a punishment. Wallahu a'lam. I believe the howl will be before that. Yes.
The fact that there are some people who will go to basically sleep or bring their brothers and sisters from their homeland. This is something important being around the community so that you won't be able to happen.
Of course, I mean, Allah, first of all, Allah protect you from being in that position in the first place. So the indication, the fact that you have people looking after you and for you after they cross the bridge, that means you better be the right companion. Always be with the good company, so that after crossing the bridge, they will be looking for you. And if you know that you're always on the edge, that there's a chance I might end up there, then in this case, you better always stay with the good company. So just in case, Allah, some people end up there, they have someone to look for them and look after them, hold them as fast as possible out of them. So that's a good indication that, I'm always remember to be the good companion and stuff like that. Yes.
I have a question about personal responsibilities. Like, I actually know a Muslim family that were raised in a cult. And because they were raised in this cult, they were really physically and sexually abused in various acts. And because of that, they grew up and left the deen, which, they were drug abuse and all kinds of horrible things. And while we know the people who were taking advantage of their children, a lot of them doing them. But what about these now adults being responsible for their own soul? But the only thing that they know at this time is abuse.
True, but that doesn't mean they. Well, I understand that people who have gone through a lot of physical, emotional, whatever kind of abuse that they've gone through during their younger age, and now they're adults, they should be responsible for their own actions, like you said. And they are going to be held accountable for their actions. Because no one right now is holding back in these memories. You have to look for the future, right? You should be responsible to improve in your life. And we know a lot of people who had some difficulties early in their life and then they recover. So everybody is responsible to recover. So holding yourself, holding your life hostage for the past, that's not fair for yourself in the first place. You can't keep holding your life hostage based on past memories like this. You always need to be hopeful for the future, inshallah. So even though they've gone through a lot of pain in the past, that's not a justification for them to misbehave in the future. They will still be held accountable and they will be answered before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for their own behavior. Allah. So that's not the issue. Just go ahead.
Yes, you mentioned that Mizan is used to wear grease or steel, right?
No.
And how does that reconcile with that about having the Masoud that's heavier than the mountain prophet? No, the mizan linked to these or can also be used to weigh
The mizan, the scale. We know already that it does actually weigh the deeds of people. Does it weigh the people themselves? Are people going to be put in that mizan, like the Prophet said that the foot of the Mas'ud and the scale is heavier than the mountain of the Prophet? Now it sounds, of course, from the literal and understanding of the hadith, it does scale between different people. Allah, but are people going to be weighed themselves? Or was that from the Prophet just an example to show how heavy it could be in the scale in terms of the deed that this would do? Allah Ta'ala actions. No, the action that he will do is not allowed. Yes. Yes, we will. Maybe the last thing we'll talk about.
Earlier it said that there will be people who that they won't be punished because of their ignorance, because of what they do not know. Regarding some people who were brought up believing in shirk type things, what is the ruling regarding them? They were all brought up.
Those who were born in the shirk themselves, they never done anything else besides that, and they die like this. They're under the Islam.
Even after Islam?
Even after Islam, if they were never introduced to Islam properly. If they were never introduced to Islam properly, they are still considered out of Islam. So they are just, they will live with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of akhirah. But in terms of dunya, if they die, we still count them as non-Muslims. And so eventually, they're by default in Jahannam until they're taken by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is Ahlul Fajr. But if anyone lives today and was introduced to Islam properly, and they voluntarily chose not to accept Islam, not to believe in Islam, then these are the people that will count like Abu Talib. Even though he knew so much about Islam, but he refused to say that Muhammad Rasulullah, and he wouldn't be saved, even though he was related to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Sure. What else about the people who never heard of Islam? But can we see that, people of Fatra, maybe they never got the message, and then it's not their fault. And nowadays, places, mountains, deserts, places where they never heard of Islam, not possible. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا يَذْلِمُ رَبُّكَ أَحَدًا. So, how is going to be the case?
In terms of dunya, if they die, we don't count them as Muslims, because they don't say that Muhammad Rasulullah. But in terms of the akhirah, they are left to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we don't condemn them basically to Jahannam in the akhirah. In the dunya, if you ask about some people who die without any message of Islam whatsoever, I can say that they died as Muslims because Allah knows what's in their hearts. Allah Ta'ala. This is a very question. Last question, inshallah. Okay, brother, last question. Anyone last question before? Go ahead.
So you mentioned the case of Abu Dhabi. I've heard something similar from Abu Lahab as well. His association, because he's from the family of some punishment. Is that, you heard anything similar?
Well, the ayah is very clear about it. تبت يدا أبي لهب وتب ما أغنى عنه ماله وما كسب ما أغنى. Nothing was out for what he earned when he had. سأصلى نارا ذات لهب. He is going to be in the blazing fire. So Abu Lahab is done. There is no any mercy for him. That's in the Quran. Abu Talib is the one that Allah gave the Prophet the permission to take him from the bottom to the top of the fire. Allah. So that's for Abu Talib. So we'll take a break for the now. And then when we come back, we will talk about the journey to Jahannam and the journey to Jannah. What is Jahannam description? The people of Jahannam, who are they? The sins that leads people to Jahannam, how to save yourself from it, and similar to Jannah, inshallah. See you, inshallah. And Salat al-Dhuhr will be at one page. Salat al-Dhuhr will be at one page.
Sorry, brothers and sisters, inshallah, after when you come back, people can come and sit after the salah. So they overflow, people can sit in front of you, at the front here, sit by the ground here, so that we don't have enough chairs for everybody. So if you can we will not complete or don't have a chair, they can sit right there, they can sit right there. So about the system, inshallah, we want to go have chairs.
Assalamualaikum everyone. We're going to break now for a lot. Please go make wudu and we'll start Salah at 1:45 inshallah. After Salah, we have lunch until 3:30 to enjoy some barbecue. And we also have a basil going on. After we go to Gaza, please help them out. And lastly, we have a career competition going on. Whoever retweets at MSA-CT Council, they will get our next top 3 drug market.
You look just like his dad, right? That's good. Hardly recognize you.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة